I'll start out by saying almost a question of, have you ever thought about whether you could be successful in implementing a continuous improvement program at a $6 billion company, 10,000 employees, 40 plus sites? Well, about 6 years ago, that's kind of what I was wondering, because that's what they asked me to do. CI is not really mainstream. So I work for a company, Ingredion. Gregory just said, you've probably never heard of us, but you probably eat our products on a pretty regular basis. We make sweeteners and starches for the food industry. So if you eat yogurts and gravies, and you're probably eating our products. We think of ourselves as a food solutions company because we sell to the people that make the food for you. So we solve their problems about taste, texture, shiny, all those things. And we're good at it, and it's a niche industry for us because there's other bigger players out there. So we have a bunch of PhDs that run around and worry about the length of molecular chains in your food. So, you know, you think about food engineering, it's out there. So when I look at the room, I think there's probably 3 types of us in here. One of the types is you're probably pretty mature in your CI journey. You've been doing it a while. I'm a little jealous. I wish we were further along in ours. You're probably integrating things. You'll see a diagram here in a little bit that I kind of say, you know, here's where you're probably at your 3rd level integrating things. I think there's some of you that may be in the center of your journey like we are. And that center of the journey is a difficult place, so you have my sympathies on that, because you're probably implementing one methodology, you're thinking about what's next, how am I going to make this work, how am I going to sustain it? It's not an easy place. And then there's some of you that may be just starting your CI journey. I'm really jealous of you because you've got a whole tapestry of opportunity in front of you. It is a rich tapestry, and it is absolutely worth doing. So I have a question for you. What do you think is the reason most companies start their CI journey? Anybody? Cost reduction. You hit the nail on the head. But if that's the only thing you do with your CI program, that's kind of like managing your business from cost reductions only. That's an insane way of managing CI as well as your business. There are many things and many facets that need to go through there. I think of 3 things when I think of continuous improvement. The first one is, cost. I better have that. Otherwise, they wonder why I exist. Why does Aubrey breathe my air? The thing is interesting on the second one, you'll talk about it, but do you really do it? And that is customer satisfaction. I want to go beyond that and say, I want customer loyalty where they won't go anywhere else because we're servicing them so well. And then the third thing, what is your most valued and scarcest resource? Your people. How many CI projects and efforts do you have just to help your people? If you're like us, it's not enough. It's embarrassingly low. Now, is safety and environment in there? Absolutely. So if you look at it, those are kind of the 3 big buckets that I think about and I try to talk about. And I try to make them all inclusive, but you got to start at bucketing somewhere. If you know Deming, you know that quality plus productivity equals competitive advantage. He wanted to title a book for that, but the publisher wouldn't let him do it. So the book got published under a different name. We've added customers and employees there. Those are the things that are important to us to concentrate on. Matter of fact, I'll talk to you a little bit about quality and productivity here in just a minute because I have a definition of what I think of as definition of quality. So let's talk about what is CI. And for me, it's easier to talk to you about what is CI not. And I'll be a little bit provocative here in the sense that CI is not projects. It is not training. It is not tools. Those are the hows of CI. We get wrapped up in doing those. We think that is the end game. That is absolutely not the end game for us at Ingredion. It is what is the business benefit we're asking for, striving for, and advertising when we achieve it so that we get to do more. So it's really about strategically improving the business wherever it makes sense. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, the business can help you with that, but if you're the CI leader, sometimes you're on your own trying to figure out where to do that. It's not easy. I like this. There's data that corresponds with this, but it's not in the same format, and I hate to futz around with other people's data, but this tells the story that I think is very powerful. 20% of the companies still today probably try to do continuous improvement with no formal methodology. The company that I joined or that bought the company I was part of now, we're doing pretty well with an informal methodology. I'll let the cat out of the bag. Since we did a formal methodology, we tripled it. In 3.5 to 4 years, basically tripled it. And we're not finished. We just started. I don't know what that's going to turn into. So when you look at it, 80% of the other companies are playing with some form of Lean and Six Sigma. That's pretty common. Everybody's doing it. They're tried and true. There's nothing wrong with it. You'll hear me talk about Lean Six Sigma, which is where we started and still have a lot of emphasis. And you also probably hear me say Lean Six Sigma and Six Sigma somewhat synonymously. So you know this. Lean is about waste elimination from the customer's point of view. Don't care what your opinion is. They don't care what my opinion is. I've had a guy that taught me this back going 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and I can see his finger in my face right here telling me that I was killing the employees because I was not letting them live up to their potential. He was right. And that's very much how do you get all the people to participate? How do you get all the people to have tools they can use? Because the power in some part of CI is all the people. When you go to Six Sigma side of it, it's about reducing variation, absolutely. It's about eliminating defects, you hear that? But I'll give you a new definition of quality here. Quality is really measured by customers as distance from target. It is not what's in spec. So if I give you something at the lower end of the spec and the upper end of the spec alternately every time I deliver you a load of starch or syrup or whatever it is, how happy are you going to be? Not very. So the definition of quality really should be on target with minimum variation. Distance from target is what I think of as the definition of quality. So no matter where you start, and we started on the project side. We're project heavy. We're Six Sigma heavy. We're just now getting into the lean aspects of it. And I was talking to Gregory and a couple of people last night. It's like herding cats because it's gotten away from me. But it's gotten away from me in a good way. But no matter where you start, you've got to do both sides of this equation because you can only do so many projects. I need 11,000 people doing tools. You want to energize your organization? How do you do that? And by the way, the people that teach Lean, and some of you may be in here that teach Lean very, very well, get them involved, but very few of them actually teach and get you to hold accountable every employee to use a tool every year. And I guess the thing that comes to mind for me is if I want to be like everybody else, I can do what everybody else does. So if I want to be ahead of everybody else, how do I get 11,000 people to do tools? Not just what the consultant taught me, but what's that next half step? What's that next thing we can do that energizes every person that walks in and out of our doors? And the tools allow you to do that. Projects are really good. You start there, you can make a ton of money. We did. We've got a lot of efficiency. If you start with tools, it might be a little harder to sell the more complex side of the projects. You know, I had a debate last night with someone. They go, well, but we started with tools and it worked out really well. I'm impressed. I am. And you know, I think it's difficult, but that's also based on the culture in my company. Your culture may be different. It surely will be. So I like this slide because it really illustrates if you only have one methodology, if you walk up and say, I'm a lean company or I'm a Six Sigma company, that's kind of like handing someone a hammer and saying, go fix everything. Everything's not a nail. So we need multiple methodologies, multiple sets of tools. We need an array of tools, a toolbox of CI tools. And I'll talk a little bit about that here now. I told you that, I kind of break things into three kind of tiers here. At the bottom tier here, if you're just starting, we talk about effective steering committees. That's important because you want your regions, your businesses to own that. They need to be the steering committees, not me. I'll sit on them, I'll help them, I'll do whatever. They need to own that. It's their results, it's their people doing it. The biggest key for me is not, I just saw this on LinkedIn a couple days ago and I responded to it. It is not leadership support. I just need leadership not to stop me to start, okay? If you don't stop me, I believe that you can do the same thing by visibly reporting your results. They're going to go, I like that. Can I have more? The answer is, yeah, they can. There's lots out there. There's more for us to do. As you go through here, yeah, key processes, you can't do anything without resources, and if they steal your resources, I'll show you what that looks like. Somewhere in the middle, I don't know if this is a slide build, it is. You expand to all functions, and because it's not just for manufacturing. The ugliest process charts we see, ladies and gentlemen, are not manufacturing process charts. They are business process charts, and some of them are ugly. Oh yeah. We did a maturity model. We know where we're at, but the maturity model is not to say where am I. It's really for me to drive where I want to go. So it's things in there we're not doing on the maturity model we developed. And if you're really in that top tier, you're really integrating things. You're integrating your everyday work. You're integrating the different tool sets as you add to it. And it's not just Lean or Six Sigma or Lean Six Sigma or Agile anymore. I propose that it's just CI. It's just continuous improvement. It all fits under there. So if you're just starting your journey, this is a pretty typical picture of where do I start. We started with Six Sigma, but really Lean Six Sigma is where we started. But it is project heavy. So if you think about this, we started with the green box. You pick your poison on where you start. And it's gone pretty well. And that little wedge there says because we did an array of tools that we taught, that we kind of got over that initial hump where people, you didn't just do one tool or one methodology. While it's one methodology, Lean Six Sigma has such a broad array of tools, they're now educated in this broad array of tools. And pretty soon down year 5, year 6, year 7, they start to go, because they're bright people, I can use that somewhere else. So I'll show you a slide here in a minute. I don't know which one it is, but it is truly, I'm herding cats right now, and it's interesting. So every day is a new adventure. But as you go through here, your Lean journey, your Six Sigma journey, your Agile journey, your statistical process control journey, all can fit under your CI umbrella. And the worry I have about using one methodology is we're leaving money on the table, we're leaving people out, we're not getting the effectiveness if we only do one thing. And the biggest worry I have is what I call complacency over time. If you think about it, this is what a lot of CI efforts look like. Look real good, we get all excited. Some emergency happens, they steal the resources, and then it stops. And people wonder why it fails, right? Well, that's why it fails, ladies and gentlemen. We stopped. The next one's one of my favorites, shiny object syndrome, otherwise known as flavor of the day. And we're guilty of it, folks. I am guilty of it as all get out. I've been there, I still do it, I try not to. But how do you not let that happen? And CI is terribly prone to that. So if you have one methodology, is that the best we can do? Is it? I don't know about your leadership, but if I go to my leadership 10 years in and go, man, you know what, in year 11, I'm going to give you the same thing I gave you last year. You okay with that? No, they're not so happy with that. So what you really want is this. Whoops, wrong way. You want that. That's what you want. Now, how do you hold on to the first methodology? Try to hold on to 80% of the resources, maybe. They're going to force you to move some over to the new thing, whatever it is, and some of those are your best trained people. You need them over there. It's okay. Build on what you have. So if you're going to add Lean on top of Lean Six Sigma, take some of your Lean Six Sigma green belts and train them as Lean leaders. And then if you have to do SPC, take some of them and get them on the SPC train. It is additive if we manage it right. But there are plateaus. And we have to look at those plateaus. And we're trying to get out of our plateau now. Actually, we are as far as activity, but we haven't gotten out of it as far as results yet because we're just starting that next activity. Let's see if we can actually get the results to show. And that's the, remember, middle of the journey? That's kind of the hard part sometimes. And that's kind of where we're at in our journey. So, if the first house of continuous improvement I built looked like this, how likely are they to ask me for more? Not much. However, it does not have to be the Palace of Versailles, as much as I think that's a pretty building. It can look like that. A good, sturdy, and if you're delivering, it's a nice house, keeps the rain off, offsets some of the inflation in your business, and they come to you and go, hey, Aubrey, can you do more? I don't know, it's really hard. And, if you give me some more money and resources, maybe I could do more, It's out there, folks, okay? You can do more. And you can do more. We're not even done with our Lean Six Sigma part, and we're already trying to add to it. So when you add these multiple methodologies, believe it or not, I see competition. Well, I got to save that for my lean savings so I can, don't do that. Just call it CI. Yeah, as a CI leader or a business leader, you should know where it's coming from and you can maybe shift your resources or efforts or whatever to manage it to the profile you need. But just make it CI so you don't have competition between groups, okay? Because that's a negative thing. The sequence of methodologies, I think, is important for us in our culture, but you have to think about what is that for your culture. What sequence of methodologies or tools or tool sets are you going to add to your culture is got to be fitting your culture. And to change culture, there's no button in my business that says, okay, if I turn this, I'm going to move that culture this way. If I turn it that way, it'll move that way. There's no culture button. Culture is changed by changing activities first, is what I've witnessed. And the more activities I change and hold those activities for year over year over year, they become habits. Habits turn into culture. And that's why this is hard. Try to keep focus in an ever-changing world, in a public business that lives quarter to quarter, has all these needs, emergencies, problems, acquisitions. That's what makes CI sometimes very, very difficult. It's not mainstream. So how do you do that? You have to concentrate on showing results. And make sure you scare the bejeebies out of them and say, if you don't do this, guess what you're going to lose? Because that's what the reality of it is. That's how that fade away starts out there. So there are challenges there, but the rewards are there as well. So overcoming those challenges, you think about a unified CI vision. You can't tell people what you think you're going to do. Let's say you're the smartest CI person in the world, and you have this vision that goes out 15 years, and you're starting a brand new company journey with this. You can tell them this much of it. Because if you tell them too much, they're going to stop and go, oh, we can't do that. That's too much. So you tell them a little bit, and you get them used to it, and you tell them a little bit more. It's called breadcrumbing. And then you say, here's how this kind of grows, because you can't take people beyond their horizon. And CI, in some cases, is beyond their horizon, because our business leaders didn't grow up as CI leaders. They didn't grow up as change leaders in their business. At least some of them didn't anyway. So you want to get down there in year 5 or 6 or 7, you start getting pull from the businesses to say, I want more of this, or I can go do this by myself. And that's the herding cats part of it, which is not all bad. So leadership, vision, overarching umbrella of CI, don't call it anything that over time. You may start with lean or agile or whatever, but over time, we call it CI. That's what we're trying to do. Have a roadmap. This is not my roadmap. I mean, it's a roadmap we use It came from a consultant, and it's complex and all that. And the first time I tried to do this the first year, I had a 400-line task list. I'm an engineer, right? But have a roadmap and execute against that roadmap. Hold your course. Get somebody that can get you that roadmap. It makes a difference. And if you don't write it down, then I would argue we don't have a path to follow. We're just kind of wandering around. So the roadmap is a very important piece. I talked to you about herding cats. We're doing okay with Lean Six Sigma, green belts, black belts. What you may think of as a 5-day yellow belt is an orange belt to us kind of thing. But that's the herding cats part. They're doing stuff out there. I can't keep up with them. I have a team of 3 people globally. We support them some, and when they need support, and we give guidance and we answer questions while we're trying to implement global policies. But that's okay. They're doing good things, even though they may not be perfect and they might not be coordinated yet, they're still doing good things. So that's kind of the key, that your culture's starting to catch on a little bit, I hope. And that's where you start to think about regional pull, and if I can't do it, because I can't take the world where it needs to go in my mind until all the regions are ready. I can't leave a region behind on a corporate initiative. So I have to kind of wait until they're all lined up and say, okay, we can all go together, but I've already got two regions out there who are probably already done and think they're finished with it. And they're going to argue with me about, well, why do you want to change? Well, you did something before we were ready globally. We got to make one program out of it. So there's cleanup that has to be done, at least in my business. And how we do that has to be carefully managed so you don't lose their attention and their motivation to go do this. Because they're motivated. They see dollars and they see opportunities here. And that's a good thing for them to see. So I've got some never forgets. Yeah, we do have to succeed somewhat with our first methodology. We have to educate on the plateaus, and that there are other aspects of this that we can implement. Build the vision early on, even if you can't share all of it, but share it as you can. Educate on the vision. Teach CI, not this, later in the journey it just turns to CI, and lead. If you knew the mistakes I make every day, I would tell you that 90% of what I do fails. I fail miserably every day. I know what's out there, I can't get to it, we can't make it right, but the 3 to 5% we're doing successfully seems to be enough for us to get more. So it's okay when you look at yourself and say, I'm failing miserably. That's okay. The 3 to 5% you're doing spectacularly is more than enough. So it doesn't matter which way you look at your business, how you do this. It really comes down to kind of those 4 things. So what vision do you want? I know I don't want those, and that's very easy to slip into. I can almost make a career off of that one. I'm convinced I could. That's what I want, but it's a lot of work. It's not easy. So I believe that's my last slide. I do have a couple of thoughts I'll leave you with. One is, we do not need in this room permission to make things better. You don't need permission from anybody to do that for your group, your sphere of influence, whatever that is. You don't need permission to develop a vision of your group, your CI, how you're going to make your stuff better. If you're waiting on permission, I would question, don't. Why would you wait? You don't need to ask anybody. Write down your vision. Even if you never tell anybody, it's your vision. It's your plan. And you don't need permission to lead your group. Lead it where you want it to go. Make it better. My last thought is, I believe that there is a vacuum of leadership in general. And I think there's a larger vacuum of leadership in CI. I would advocate that it's worth doing. So each one of you could go fill some of that vacuum in your company. Some of you already are doing that. I would tell you, go grab it with gusto. It's worth doing. Now, I'm not going to be around much longer. My schedule this week, it was lucky I could even be here. I'm sorry for that. I'm going to leave some cards on the table. If you miss me, there are cards here. Call my cell, text me, email me. If you call any other number on there, I don't answer them. I don't pick them up. Cell number, text, email. I'm here to learn from you. We're not that good at it. This is our journey. We're kind of doing okay. but I need to learn from you too. This is about us sharing and us benchmarking each other. So I'll take a question or two if we have time.
First of all, great. Thank you very much. Round of applause for Aubrey. Any questions? While you're thinking about that, a few takeaways. I think educate on the plateaus. That's so important. I love the part about you don't need support from leaders. You need them not to stop you. And I think, most importantly, the profound message that all these years after Dr. Deming's work, we're hearing a pure CI pitch here that, we have lots of cool, shiny objects in terms of process and technology now, but the basics still are profound and they work, and you're filling that vacuum. Thank you very much for your great leadership, Aubrey. Another round of applause.
We have one question.
Any questions? Right here.
Thank you. I'm always kind of interested in kind of two areas. First, how does the regulatory environment kind of inform your CI activities? Being in the food industry, there's always kind of an interplay there. And then how are you getting that feedback from your customers on what they really want and need from you?
Well, if you look at it, regulatory is interesting because we do some work with our regulatory teams. If you're in regulatory, you got issues. Use some of these CI tools or a Greenbelt project or a Kaizen or whatever it is to tie into those issues. And find the data, work on it, those types of things. There's another piece of that, it's the change management piece. So when you go change things, you have to do your change management because you can't afford to do something and make a change and it affect what happens as a food goes out the door. So your change management piece in regulatory is critical. You cannot get away from that. So we have a large change management effort in our company that we adhere to pretty well, actually. The second part of the question was? Well, here's the customer feedback. The customer feedback is they continue to send people to training, okay? We've trained over 9,000 people in some form of CI. Now, most of them are white belt, yellow belt, just to participate on a team. But we've got 900 or 1,000 or whatever green belts and black belts. In my dream, it would be every salaried person would be green belt. Every director up would be a black belt because I want them to understand data. I don't care what side of the business you're in. And then the feedback is, it's really not about feedback, it's about feed forward, is what are their strategic needs, and then what are their bottom-up needs that they don't even look at. So how do we go out to the regular folks on the floor in the office and do SIPOCs and find out the stuff that they're struggling with that aren't strategic necessarily, but it's a big bunch of waste. And then how do we make sure the projects and efforts are strategically aligned? So we've got to do both of those. It's top-down and bottom-up. So I hope that helps answer some of the question.
Excellent. Other questions?
I think you talked a couple of times about regional pull, and I think that was mostly on what methodologies and so forth to use. But if your regions are anything like my experience, they're naturally pull in different directions.
My cats, yeah.
I wondered if you had kind of any secrets on how you balance that between letting the regions have the ownership and doing their own things versus kind of combining efforts or having synergies so that the resources are kind of optimized at the corporate level.
Yeah, here's the thing that I worry about, and this is why I don't mind the cat scenario because it's very true to me. I would rather them be doing something that's literally beyond some of my control because as an engineer, I kind of want to control things, but I'm not quite the control freak. So if they're doing good stuff, the key is communication. What are you doing? How are you doing it? And I sat through the first 17 training sessions we did for green belts and black belts personally. I know this core of people. So I know all the leaders there. So it's almost like find out how to do that communication, make sure you're aware, and give them this much support. If that's all you got, give it to them. They'll appreciate that support. And by giving that, they know that, hey, we're still one team even though we're out there. But make sure you tell them, at some point we're going to have to globalize this. It might change. And if you do that up front, maybe that helps.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much, Aubrey.
Thank you.